Well, good morning, everyone. What a way to wake up, huh? It is Tuesday, March the 4th, 2014. It is 8 degrees this morning in Indianapolis. I do believe the cold weather, I'm knocking on wood here, the cold weather might be finally behind us. And by that I mean any sub-zero temps and massive amounts of snow. Really disappointed in this last round that went through over the weekend. It ended up going south of us. So all the teasing that we received with the 12 to 14 inches of snow hit Louisville, Kentucky, and parts thereof, and created havoc down there instead of all over us. So, spring's coming. Sooner or later. I will say I'm getting tired of all the snow and the cold. So, spent some time over the weekend and got some things planted inside the house to get ready to go out into the ground. Lots going on in the news this morning. Some of this stuff that I want to cover this morning. Of course, the biggest news, I think that most people have seen over the last few days is what's going on in the Ukraine. I know there are a lot of theories on why, but basically Russia is stepping in and trying to take over possibly several countries over there. One of them is the Ukraine, which used to be part of Russia to begin with, for various reasons. I know we've been following it over on our Blue News page, but the situation over there is getting very, very tense. And it's hard sometimes to find accurate news of what's actually going on over there. Luckily, we have a chick who's been on the show before in the past, Oksana, whose family is in the Ukraine right now. So she's been able to dig up some actual good information, some true information, as opposed to some of the propaganda that mainstream media is trying to force feed us and manipulate us into thinking what's truly going on over there. So, been able to post some of that, but definitely we're paying attention to it because whether you believe it or not, it will affect us here. A lot of people just bury their heads and think, oh, it's, half a world away. And, what could it possibly do to us here? When they don't realize that, the Ukraine holds a lot of pipeline for natural resources that get pumped into Russia. And they've already started to see the price fluctuations in gas prices in Europe. And the stock markets are already starting to shake because of what's going on over there. So believe it or not, it will affect us here in our cozy little worlds, in our cozy little homes here in the United States. So, with the increase in the price of gasoline and things like that, that money has to come from somewhere. And our boss is not going to give us a raise because, shit's happening in overseas right now. So, to offset the price of putting extra fuel in your vehicle and the extra costs associated with that, a lot of times that digs into your food budget. If at any time in the past you feel a need to prep, now is a very good time, whether to get started or to increase the preps that you have. I do not see this situation getting better anytime soon. There's a lot of tail feathers going up and posturing going on between countries right now. Putin is not one to back down, unlike some other presidents out there. Whether or not I agree with us getting involved is not a matter. It depends on whether or not if we get involved. And right now it's not looking good. So, we've already approved, according to Google.com at the news yesterday, that even as broke as we are here in the United States and can't afford to, feed our own citizens or fix our own roads or buy salt for our own cities, we're still approving a $1 billion economic aid to the Ukraine. That money's coming from somewhere, whether we like it or not. We also, according to several news sources yesterday, have halted all military engagements with Russia. We've put sanctions on Russia. Specifically, I hit the Washington Post yesterday. If they don't withdraw from the Ukraine, my husband and I were talking about this last night, just discussing back and forth, Russia invading the Ukraine. And, we were talking about what's going on. If the same thing were going on in Mexico, would the United States step in? The Ukraine is right beside Russia. And they have a lot to lose if, say, someone like the United States steps in and puts some military bases there. Think about it. If, Mexico was going through the same turmoil or whatever's going on over there, whether it's paid activists or not, if Mexico or Canada was going through the same thing, would we expect the United States to step in and, just protect our assets here? We would not want Russia being involved there. Kind of the same situation if you think about it. So, it's not a matter of opinion at this point, because there is so much false information out there. But it's a matter of, this is a prepper show. It's a matter of what we need to do here to get prepared for a possible all-out war, because that is what it's looking like. Poland, I know, has gone on high alert because we have Russian troops off of their borders. It's not a good situation, and we really, really need to pay attention to it. And if you do not think that this is going to affect you here in the United States, you truly need to wake up. Off to other news, and we'll keep posting alerts on this as we get them over the next few days or however long this goes on. But definitely take the time, spend it wisely while we still can, and get extra preps in gear, so that way if something would happen, if the price of gasoline increases, that, like I said, that money has to come out of somewhere. If your bills increase, your natural gas, we've already seen the prices for that skyrocket, and not necessarily because of lack of it, but also from greed from the suppliers too, this past winter. So look at your food supply, because usually that is where most people get hit the hardest, and make sure you're doing everything that you can right now to be able to sustain yourself in that area. If you're not planning on putting a garden in this spring, I would wisely rule against that and make sure that you get something planted. If you don't have room, if you live in an apartment or something like that, there still are options out there. And even look and see if you have friends that have some property. But quite honestly, I did post some recipes already up on the pink page this morning. Some canning recipes. If you do not know how to can, it's really not that hard to do. Usually there's two methods. You have your water bath, and you have your pressure canning. It's not as scary as a lot of people think it is. We have new technology these days. I haven't heard of a pressure canner blowing up for a long, long time now. But some things that you could easily get ready is, I put a recipe up there for potatoes, to can potatoes. There's one up there for veggie stock, if you're a vegetarian or whatnot. If you have scraps left over from vegetables that you're cooking, using for something else, save those. You can easily make a vegetable broth stock with that, and then can it. Another thing is some unstuffed cabbage rolls. If that's up your aisle, then definitely. There are multiple sites on the internet to get some great recipes for canning. Take it upon yourself to safeguard your food stocks for next winter. Get a garden in, get this stuff planted, get your food supplies stocked up now before it's too late. You do not want to be coming into November with no food supply, no food store. So, do it for yourself, do it for your family. But definitely something that you need to think about. Some other things in the news. I thought this was, well, I don't know if it's funny or not, but doing some fracking. Where were they? I want to say down off the South Pole or someplace. suburban tundra. They were doing some drilling, and they unearthed a 30,000-year-old giant virus. It's like, they said it's not harmful or anything like that, but they do warn that one day they could drill into something and unleash something that could create havoc upon the world. So I know we talked last week about Obamacare, and I've heard multiple horror stories when it comes to healthcare and the dramatic turn that it's taking, whereas a lot of people can't afford healthcare, can't afford Obamacare, and are now looking at being fined because they do not have healthcare, which is just, in my opinion, asinine. But there are, men playing behind the scenes that are after specific things that you might have. So, look at alternative medicines. Essential oils are awesome. I use those myself. We have a store up on our webpage. I have truly gotten off of a lot of harmful medications by using essential oils. I know I've talked about it in the past. I had knee surgery a couple of years ago now. And the medication that the doctor had me on just had me on a roller coaster ride. You have to understand, I don't take these kind of things normally. And it was to the point where I hadn't slept for days because of the up and down effect. I was constantly feeling like I was falling. And it was so bad to the point where, my husband, poor, bless his heart, had to sit beside me until I fell asleep just because of, the effects of these medications they had me on. And they were just pain medications. One, I believe, was Oxycontin, which from what I understand now, you can get quite addicted to. But luckily, I decided that enough was enough and was doing some research, and that's when I got hooked up with essential oils. I use one specific company, so after doing my research, that's the one I like. That's the one I endorse on my website. There's nothing on my website I endorse that I don't use, believe it or not. And I started using those and eventually got off the pain medication altogether for my knee surgery. So there are alternate forms out there of medication. Just dig into your facts and all of that before, and I'm not saying just to flip off the medication altogether, especially if you've been on it for a long time. It's a weaning process. So, you can even get your doctors, if possible, blessing on that. It's depending on how open-minded your doctor is. So just know that there are alternate forms of ways to heal yourself out there. Herbs are also great. We ran a special this past Thursday and Friday where if you got some essential oils, we also threw in some herbs that went along with it that are awesome. But if you need information, let me know. We do have some stuff up on our website. But again, know that there are alternate forms of medication out there, not the stuff that you can get addicted to that a lot of doctors get a kickback from. Would we even need to have Obamacare if we got rid of all the racketeering that went on with pharmaceutical companies, with the insurance companies, all of that? Probably not. And we'd probably be a lot healthier. Besides the fact that 90% of the food that you buy in your grocery stores right now is very harmful to you. So do your research, eat whole foods, can your whole foods, get a garden going this summer. Your life could depend upon it in the very near future. But back to what's going on overseas. Just keep an eye on it. We'll keep everybody as informed as best we can. Usually coming up into the weekend, I do have to work a lot at my other job, so I'll do what I can do from my phone, which totally sucks sometimes, but it is what it is. Another thing, just FYI, I know that there were pineapple on sale at different stores around town, and I've heard it all over for like $1 a piece for a fresh pineapple. Those can be canned, cut up in chunks and canned too, so that you do have a mix of products in your pantry. So please look at doing that. Another story that I want to get into is actually two. And this is geared more for the women out there. So please, please, please pay attention. A couple months ago, here in Indianapolis, and both these stories that I'm going to tell you happened here in Indy. We are not immune to this, and no other city out there is immune to it also. Both of these kind of hit home for me. But the first one involved a gentleman that lived here. He owned his own company. It was a landscaping business. And he had an employee that worked for him that decided, he'd rather sleep in sometimes than show up for work. So like any employer, he terminated the employment of this person. Doesn't seem all that far-fetched at this point, when you don't abide by what your employer needs, those things happen. So this ex-employee now got pissed off to the point that, and unfortunately, let me back up real fast, the employer owned a landscaping business, and unfortunately, he made the decision to have his employees come to his house and do some landscaping work on his house. So his employees know where he lives. So fast forward, one of the people that worked for him decided not to do his job or show up for work half the time or was late, and so he was terminated. Unfortunately, this ex-employee now also knew where he lived at. So one day while this gentleman was at work, this ex-employee visited his home and proceeded to take the the employer's wife and daughter into the basement and kill them with a brick. Hell of a way to go. If it's your choice to, in your mind, decide where you want to go with that or not. I can assure you it was not a pleasant situation. Unfortunately, this is the world that we live in today. And I'm hearing more and more and more about incidents like this, which scares the hell out of me because I am one of those employers, and I've terminated many, many employees over the years. I can assure you right after I arrived in Indianapolis, I had an employee that had put a hit out on me. He had this elaborate plan, whereas he was going to roll a dumpster up against the back door of one of the places that I visit. And when I arrived, he was going to text the employees that were there at the time and come in and shoot the place up. And he instructed them to go into a safe designated area so they wouldn't get harmed, because he was after me. This is my reality. And this is why partly I do what I do. A lot of women out there live in a very false sense of security, and they think the men in their lives are going to protect them. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. I've studied what's gone on after downgrade situations, whether it's Fukushima, whether it's Katrina, or any time people are thrown into a bit of a mess and have to leave their homes. And sometimes I know with the tsunami that hit Japan, and the devastation there, that women in general sometimes lost every male in their family and unfortunately did not know how to take care of themselves. Please don't be that person. The times ahead of us are going to be really, really rough. And it's up to you, and it's your responsibility to make sure you know how to protect yourself. And I understand usually the first place that we go to when we think of self-protecting is firearms. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. There are other multiple avenues out there that you can take to be prepared. It doesn't always have to be a firearm. And I'm saying that as an NRA instructor. But women, please wake up to this. It's a very real fact. Going into another story that just hit, and I posted this yesterday. 2 women in their 20s, college students, had gone to a local Walmart here in Indianapolis on the north side. Actually, it's out on the northwest side in Avon. And, 2 girls hanging out, both were moms. Guys are at home. And, go to the Walmart. It's like 11 o'clock at night. One of them has the child with them, who I believe was 3. And, I'm just going to read through this because I want you to make sure you understand here because they did a good write-up. So, put yourself in the situation. I know it's hard. I know a lot of you don't like to think about this stuff, but you need to. You need to let your mind go there, and I'll explain why in a minute. But, they loaded their groceries into the one girl's car, and, the other one got in the passenger seat. And the driver was just about ready to get into, the car to start it, and a man wearing a mask grabbed her arm from behind. Now, we can all go in multiple places here, situational awareness, all that kind of stuff. But, this is what happened. So the driver, the woman that, had the masked man started to scream, and the guy pointed a handgun at her neck and told her to be quiet or he would kill her. So the man pushed the driver into the car, forcing her to sit on the console between him and the woman that was in the passenger seat. So they left the Walmart in a hurry, almost hitting 2 other vehicles, and the 3-year-old daughter was in the back seat in her car seat. The next 6 hours, this person tormented this family. 6 hours. They have arrested the man. He's it says, gives his name and his age here. He's 37 years old. But that doesn't take away all of the harm that he's done. He's been charged with, I think, 40 counts of rape, kidnapping, criminal deviant conduct, robbery, theft, and a multitude of other crimes. These 2 women and these children and other people involved in this are, scarred for life. And it mentions that they happened to be at a CVS and the woman just froze. Nothing was happening. It was just, memories coming back to haunt her. So anyways, both the women are in the vehicle, and in the story, they give, student, fake IDs. Michelle and Serena is who they're called. And they both leave crying. They're crying in the vehicle. This Parrish guy is what they refer to him as. Parrish is his last name. He's informed them to keep their heads down and not to look at him. So Serena said Parrish drove to a nearby apartment complex, parked their Chevrolet Blazer a little farther back. Michelle, the other person's daughter, was in the back crying and begged Parrish to let them go. Now, mind you, she's 3. She's quite aware of what's going on around her. Please don't kill us, Michelle recalled her daughter saying. Just let us go home. You're going to be fine, Serena recalled Parrish saying, just be quiet. The woman said Parrish had taken their cell phones, money, credit cards before they got to the complex, but they said Parrish wanted more. He forced Michelle into the back seat and raped her there. The woman and a probable cause affidavit said, with her hands tied, Serena kept her head down as she tried to console Michelle's daughter, who was moved to the front seat. So this asshat is raping this woman in the back seat of a Chevy Blazer, while the second victim and the victim's daughter, a 3-year-old, are in the front seat. The woman in the front seat obviously is trying to console the daughter. After he's done with this, he drives them to their home 10 miles away. On the way to the house, Michelle said, he kept telling me that if I got us pulled over, it would be a shootout. Michelle said they could have gotten pulled over at any time. Her truck is old and it's missing a side mirror. The brakes could have stopped working at any moment. That's what I was scared of, she said, that something was going to go wrong. Serena, who was sitting in the back seat, thought of the worst. Her boyfriend was at home. Her 17-month-old son was also there sleeping. What if her son wakes up and starts crying? What if he hurts him? What if he hurts them both? Serena's boyfriend, who's also given a pseudonym in the story, was playing video games when they arrived. He heard Michelle call him and he sensed the fear in her voice. When Chris got to the kitchen, Parrish immediately pointed a gun at his face and yelled at him to get on the floor. The probable cause affidavit said. Chris said Parrish kicked him in the ribs with his steel-toe boots, cracking one and dislocating another. He tied Chris and Serena while Michelle was standing by the hallway, holding her daughter. Chris and Parrish pulled out a .380 caliber handgun, forced it inside Chris's mouth, and cocked it back. Do you see this bullet? Chris recalled Parrish asking, and he nodded. Does it look real? Parrish asked again. He said yes. And then he, said, you're a piece of whatever. And Chris recalled Parrish telling him, you're nothing, you're weak. This guy's going to live with this for the rest of his life. With Parrish on their tail, the three went to each bedroom. First to Michelle's room, then to Serena and Chris's, where their son had been sleeping. And this guy ransacked their drawers, forced them to pack their valuables in pillowcases. Chris was later left in one of the bedrooms hogtied as the two women were in the living room, unplugging electronics and putting them in pillowcases. Again, Parrish told them not to look at him. Parrish then placed Michelle and the two children in the bedroom where Chris was tied. Michelle's daughter already had fallen asleep by then. Serena's son had woken up and was crying. Then the door was open and they could see what was going on in the living room, where Parrish, according to an affidavit, was raping Serena now. Michelle said she tried to cover Serena's son's eyes as she was holding him, but he screamed every time that she screamed. Later, Parrish sexually assaulted both women, once in the living room and again in the bathroom. I was thinking about how I could kill him, but there wasn't much I could do, said Chris, who had been with Serena for 4 years. My hands were tied behind my back. I can't imagine hearing someone I love going through this. Toward the end of the ordeal, Parrish placed all of them in the bedroom, turned the lights off, and locked the door. They said they could hear him out walking across the kitchen floor back in as he loaded their belongings into Michelle's truck. Is this really happening to us right now? Michelle whispered to Serena and Chris. We're going to tell the police about this, right? It's sad when we question whether or not we should report something to the police. But anyways, the footsteps faded, the kitchen door closed, they heard the guy leave with the truck, and then there was nothing but silence. And they sat there until 10:30, till the sun came up. And mind you, this started at 11 o'clock the preceding night. They did not call the police until 10:30 the next morning. 3 days later, they found this guy. He was still driving Michelle's truck in Indianapolis. He was arrested. And like I said, he now faces multiple charges. This could happen to anyone. Anyone. They talk about there's 3 areas of alert that you should be in. The first level is your low level. That's where you're really relaxed. You're at home, you're getting ready to go to bed. Your doors are all locked, and all of that. The second level is when you are out in public. You might be in a familiar place. You don't have that, hair standing up on the back of your neck feeling, but you know that there are people around you that you don't know. So your alert level is a little raised. The third level is when you're in a situation that you need to be ready for anything. We can go back and we can break this story down piece by piece, and we all can sit there and we all can say, well, they should have done this and they should have done that. It is what it is. We can sit here and we can say what we would do, but what would your kids do? What if that was your daughter? What if it was your sister, your mom, your aunts? Would they have the ability to do what they needed to do to survive through that? To not get in that situation to begin with? We talk about situational awareness all the time, but, sometimes it is what it is. If somebody's going to come and they want you bad enough, there's not a whole lot that's going to stop them. We talk about hardening our homes in order to give ourselves more time. Not to necessarily stop someone from entering your home while you're there, because quite honestly, if they really want to get in your home, there's a very good chance that they'll get in your home. Our homes are not built nowadays to withstand anything. We have too many, windows and glass that's shatterproof and doors, and you're only one person. And quite honestly, we don't want to live in a dungeon. We want to enjoy the sun when it comes up in the morning, shining through our windows. So we look at hardening our homes and things that we can do in order to deter someone and give us more time to get situated in our home in case someone is trying to break in, whether that's into a safe room or whatever, to get our firearms out. I know I've preached about this a million times. A lot of people keep their firearms in a gun safe when they're home. Why? Now you still have to go get it. It should be within arm's reach of you at all times. Now, if you have kids, they make gun safes, small ones that you could keep. They can be put underneath of, the end table, the coffee table. They're still locked up. They can be put in a drawer in the kitchen. Ladies, if you spend a lot of time in the kitchen baking or whatever, and I'm not being sexist here, but you can get a gun safe that'll go into a drawer that's, out of sight of the children. It's locked up, but it's still within arm's reach. And if you need help there, please let me know. I'm here to help. But quite honestly, either one of these situations could happen to any one of us at any time. If not directly, to someone that we know. And how many of us sit here and, talk about nobody listens to us anyways? Preppers specifically, one of the biggest bitches, if you want to call it that we have is the fact that nobody listens to what we're trying to say. We've seen it this past winter where, we've warned people, hey, there's snow coming, the roads are going to be bad. We saw the first storm come through where we saw thousands of children left on school buses, left in schools because they couldn't make it home. Round 2 comes through, same thing. It's like, hello? Why didn't we learn from the first time? Which is bad enough the second time. But geez, third one comes through, same thing. Fourth one comes through, same thing happens. People are stranded, cars are on fire. It's like, what does it take to wake people up? A lot more than I have sometimes, I think. And yeah, I mean, these are people that we love. Half the time they're people we live with. We call it normalcy bias. They don't want to deal with reality. They like living in their own little world. It's easier that way. Women are the worst for this. But to get through whatever's coming up in the future, if we do go to a world war with what's going on over here, if our economy, or I should say when our economy tanks, things are going to be rough here in the United States. These are two stories of stuff that's going on now. I can't imagine what it's going to be like if the United States economy falls. If there's any one thing that will sustain a riot, it's people being hungry. The economy falls. Gasoline is, what they pay for prices in Europe. That money's going to come from somewhere. Now it's hitting your food budget. Can't feed your kids. How far would you go to feed your children? Would you kill someone? We talk about these situations all the time on our Tuesday night show. We put scenarios out there because we want people to start thinking, which it seems is a lost art in the United States anymore. We want you to start thinking about different situations and how you would handle those. You're not going to be 100% accurate, but it will get you headed in the right direction. One thing they do teach you in martial arts and any kind of self-protection classes is put yourself in different situations. Put your mind in different situations. And then work yourself out of that situation. How would you handle it if it's 5 o'clock in the morning and you're in bed by yourself? Your husband left to go to work and somebody broke in and you woke up and he's in your bedroom. What would you do? What do you have access to? Play the game in your mind before it becomes a reality. Because then you're a step ahead if something does happen. What if you're at your doctor's office with your kids and somebody comes in shooting up the front desk? You're in your little room waiting for the doctor to come in. What do you have around you that you can use to protect yourself with? What if you're in the restaurant? There's a difference between things that can conceal you and things that can protect you. I've posted lots of videos up about different calibers of bullets and whatnot, and how they impact, the drywall in your home. A lot of people think they can get behind a wall and it's going to protect them. It's not. A lot of people have staged things like big planters, with palm trees in them or whatever, full of sand and dirt. That's going to protect you more so than a drywall. Know the difference between the two. Know what you have in your house that you can use to shield yourself with. One of the things that we look at when you're building, or when you have a home and you're designing a safe room within your home is a couple different factors. First of all, you have to understand when kids get scared, they have the tendency to hide in their own bedroom. So it might be a good idea to make their own bedroom the safe room in your home. But then people need to also understand there are ways to make the room even safer, such as replacing the hollow core door with an outside steel door. Things like that you can get shut and be able to deter anyone from going in to give yourself more time or for authorities to arrive. I'm not big on, relying on the police to protect us. We've seen it time and time again, and I'm not throwing them under the bus here. I know many people in law enforcement and, they're really good people. On the flip side, there are some out there that just aren't that good, and they just do not have your best interests at heart. I'm not going to gamble my family's life on deciding which ones, or betting on which one's going to show up at my house. It's my responsibility to keep myself and my family safe. And the police a lot of times will tell you they're there to clean up the mess. I unfortunately lost an employee here not too long ago, and I was talking to the detective here in Indianapolis, and they are overwhelmed. They do not know where all the crime is coming from. Every day, it seems like we wake up and someone else has been killed in the city. It's reality. It's not going to get a whole lot better. And he even said as much. They don't know where it's coming from. They're overwhelmed. It's gang related. It's pissed off boyfriend related. It's, a plethora of things. They can't pinpoint it. They can't herd it into one little section of town and clean it up because it's all over the place. And this is now, before things get bad. It's not going to get better anytime soon. And if there's any one thing you need to get the word out to women, it's they need to not rely on anyone else except for themselves for protection. These are two very real examples of what's going on out in the world today. If you're not into firearms, that's fine too. You don't have to be. There are other things that you can do. One of the upsides of being into prepping is how much stress it takes off of you when there's a situation going on. How much you don't panic. If you watch, I've talked about it, one of the first snowstorms that came through Indianapolis, I did go to the grocery store, and I wanted to see the reaction of the people, because usually I don't go. There's no reason for me to go. And I've heard the stories on the news about all the people that are scrambling to get, and clean out the grocery stores and whatnot. So I went. I wanted to see it, and people were panicking. The grocery store aisles were bare over snow. The last couple that we've had, I've sat home with my family. We sat around playing games or, playing on the internet, updating Proper Chicks, make sure everybody else knew what was going on. And, it's nice to be able to sit home and not worry about anything. If the power goes out, hey, the power goes out. I was kind of disappointed that nothing did happen because, the best time to try out your preps is when in a very, structured, downgrade situation. But we got nothing. So, we had power the entire time and, life was good. Fire in the fireplace, everybody was happy and eating food and full and, while other people were out in the city scrambling to find the last loaf of bread. A couple things that, you can do, and you need to look at, when you're talking about hardening your home. Too, is, look at your doors. Do you have, cheap doors that came on the house? A quick fix. Just go replace them with solid metal doors, Look at the screws that are holding your door in. If you look at pictures anytime of, when someone tries to break into your home, usually, the deadbolt area is intact. The wood splits around the hinges and things like that. So what you need to do is take out the screws that hold your hinges in And you'd be surprised at how small they are. You need to just go to the store, pick up some 3-inch screws and replace those. That way the 3-inch screws go into 2x4s or whatever is behind your door, not just barely into the wood that's behind them. Remember, this is about giving you and your family enough time to get prepared. That means into a safe room, locked in, firearms out if that's what you choose to lose, calling one, whatever. Just give yourself more time. Look at your garage doors. Are they capable of being locked? It's very easy to break into a garage door, whether it's down or not. I've seen the videos multiple times. My husband has tried it where you shimmy something up between the door at the top and your house and be able to pull the lock on it and get the garage door open. Sliding glass doors. There are ways to lock them. There's film that you can buy to put over glass, and this goes for windows too, especially around a door. There's a film that you could put on them that deters them from breaking if someone would try and hit them with a baseball bat. There's supplies out there that you can get to give yourself and your family more time. Same thing with locks. Chain locks, a lot of people use those. They think they're safe. But somebody could easily slide some deadbolts between your door, and cut that chain lock. Bar type locks are a lot safer, to use in that situation. Look at the difference between a single cylinder deadbolt and a double cylinder deadbolt. You want to get the double cylinder. Change out, your door handles. Look at keyless locks. The only problem is, a lot of times, especially if you have children, they might let it slip what your code is. So you need to be very careful there. And then where you hide your keys at. Don't be one of those under the mat, under the rock outside. It's one of the first places people look. We talked about the safe room, and having a defense plan. Some things that you need to keep and think about keeping in your safe room is an extra cell phone that you can easily turn on. Make sure there's a charger in there if you need it. A flashlight and extra batteries. A set of your car keys. That way if you do get out and you can get out, you can get in your car and leave if you need to. Protective devices. I know, a friend of mine, Rob Pincus, got some flack over the fact that he mentioned that you should stage a firearm in your child's room. And people were just appalled by the fact you should not keep a gun in a child's room. And they're just going off on him. Let me, follow his train of thought. If your child has a tendency to hide under their bed or in their closet in a stressful situation, where do you think they're going to go if somebody breaks into your home? Probably back to their bedroom, which would logically make sense to make their bedroom the safe room. So you flipped out the door. You've done all this stuff to make it safe. Now you're locked in there. They make devices. They make gun safes. If you choose to use that as a form of protection, a firearm, they make safes that you can put up in the, top of your child's closet. That's locked, that they don't have access to. But if there's a situation and you need to get to it and you're locked in your safe room now, you have it there. It's a personal choice, one that you have to make, but know that there are options out there. Another thing that people don't commonly think about is some type of ladder, especially if the safe room is on the second floor. What happens if this person that's broken into your home tries to flush you out with a fire? Or catches your house on fire when they leave? One thing that you might want to stock in there is a ladder to be able to get out if you need to. And of course, always put a plan together and practice. You do not want your child walking out into the middle of a robbery. What happens What do you want your child to do, and how would you want your child to react if somebody broke into your house and has you in the kitchen? Do you want your child coming into the kitchen when they hear voices? Or would you rather have them go to the safe room and lock themselves in? These are things that you need to think about. Going back to the first story that I told you about today, the pissed off ex-employee took the man's wife and daughter into the basement. Did they live in a false sense of security? I don't know. I don't know these people personally. I don't know every step of events that happened. I can formulate things in my head, but, I have questions. Why would you answer the door to someone you don't know? But then again, they knew this person. This person had been at their home. It's not always the strangers that you need to be wary of. There was someone I interviewed when I first started doing this, someone that was a good friend of the family, that was in their prepping group that raped this woman. You have to know how to protect yourself. Take some form of martial arts. There are multiple teachers out there anywhere. Krav Maga is tops. I couldn't endorse it enough. The more tools that you have in your toolbox, your self-protective toolbox, the more dangerous you are. Legally, I'm not allowed to carry a firearm at work. It's against our company's policy. I shouldn't say legally. It's against our company policy. So taking that, there are a multitude of other avenues out there that you can look at. There's a gentleman that runs a company called Mindset Lab here in Indianapolis. He teaches flashlight combatives. How to use a flashlight, something that I don't think it's been banned anywhere to my knowledge, that you can always have on you to use to protect yourself. There are classes like this all over the place. So again, if you choose not to carry a firearm, that's your personal choice. But know that there are a multitude of other avenues that you can take to protect yourself with. Talk about having security dogs. I know it's been said before that if somebody wants to get in, all they have to do is shoot the dog. I mean, they do have a valid point there. Will deter some people, probably some lightweight thieves and things like that, if they're just after stuff and they have no intent of hurting anyone. You need to look at making your house look less attractive to someone trying to break in than your neighbors, unfortunately. And yeah, I'm going to throw your neighbors under the bus there on that one. But if put yourself into the bad guy's shoes. If you're going to break into someone's house, would you break into someone's house that had less obstacles to overcome in order to get what they want? Probably. If you see a house that has thorns or roses or something like that planted under their windows, that's going to hurt like hell when you're trying to crawl through their windows. You hear a dog or see objects that could look like they have a dog, anything like that. Are you going to pick that house? Or are you going to pick the house that has absolutely nothing? Probably the house that doesn't have any of that. Another thing to consider, putting your car key or your house key on, or specifically your car key, on its own separate ring on your key ring. That way, if you go someplace like a parking garage, all you do is give them the car key. How many women hand them the entire wad of keys that you have? Guess what's on that wad of keys? Your house key. You can check the registration in your car to find out where you live. Now they have a copy of your house key. Another place I want you to think about making sure that your situational awareness is up is at ATMs. Know the location. A lot of times, you have to get out of your car to go to an ATM. Choose wisely what time you do this. I know there are some circumstances where you might not have a choice on what time you can go, but make sure that you drive around the area before you go, and just to see if there's anyone around. Make it quick. Take somebody with you if you can. Elevators. Ladies, elevators. You're traveling by yourself. Easy way to get yourself into trouble. When you get in there, push multiple floors. If you get in there and you're on the 13th floor and you just push 13, that's 13 floors. You're going to have to be in an elevator with someone you might not want to. Push multiple floors so you have the opportunity to get those doors open and get off there if you have to. Never, ever press the stop button because it will lock it up. If you do not feel comfortable, don't get on it. There's nothing saying that you have to get on an elevator with someone that's just, trust your gut. Trust your gut. Bus stops, subways. You also need to please pay attention. When you're in a parking garage or someplace like that, big red flag is when the lights do not work, when it's dark in there. That's to their advantage. And there's a reason why your lights might not work in a parking garage. It's because they've either unscrewed them, or broke them or something like that. That gives them the advantage. So if you pull into a parking garage or something like that and the lights aren't working, stay in your car and get the hell out of there. Go find someplace else to park. Don't make yourself a target. Purses, wallets, briefcases, all those kind of things. You really need to make yourself secure, especially if you're traveling.